Lila wasn't just another member of the homeowners association. To her, she was the HOA. At least, that's how she saw herself. With her signature fluorescent pink visor, a clipboard always in hand, and a latte that seemed to never leave her grip, Lila patrolled the neighborhood like a hawk searching for prey. Her mission? To protect the community, even if it meant enforcing rules that didn't even exist. The neighborhood newsletter, which she took it upon herself to edit and hand out, was filled with passive-aggressive reminders. For example, residents are kindly reminded that blue trash bins clash with our neighborhood aesthetic. Please use green bins only. To Lila, it was her sacred duty to uphold these standards, no matter how ridiculous they were. Enter Tommy, a laid-back, easygoing guy who had just moved into the area. Tommy was everything Lila hated: relaxed, unbothered, and worst of all, someone who refused to comply with her arbitrary rules. Tommy's mailbox? A sleek, modern black design, which Lila immediately decided was an offense to the neighborhood's charm. She wasted no time in making her presence known, clipboard in hand, and informing Tommy that his mailbox would need to be replaced. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, all smiles. "I noticed your mailbox doesn't follow HOA guidelines," Lila chirped, her smile a little too wide. "Guidelines?" Tommy asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," she replied, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's a little too bold. We prefer something more traditional, like white with decorative posts." Tommy just laughed. "I'll think about it," he said, knowing full well he wouldn't. But Lila's crusade didn't stop at mailboxes. The HOA rules she loved to enforce were absurdly detailed. Grass had to be cut to exactly 2.5 inches. Driveways could only be pressure washed on Thursdays, and Halloween decorations were fine, as long as they were removed by 10 a.m. on November 2nd, sharp. Lila's favorite pastime? Issuing violation notices. She would tuck them into mailboxes or slap them on front doors for everyone to see. Always signed with the title HOA Compliance Officer, a title she'd given herself, of course. Tommy couldn't help but watch as his neighbors scrambled to follow Lila's whims, from repainting fences to replanting hedges, and he felt a little sorry for them. Still, he figured he could keep his head down and fly under the radar. That is, until Lila discovered the small strip of land at the edge of his property, a discovery that would spark a neighborhood war. Tommy thought he had found his dream home, peaceful, quiet, and far from busybody neighbors. But he didn't realize his property came with a narrow strip of land that bordered the community park. Barely a dirt path, this stretch of land had somehow become a shortcut for HOA residents. And of course, Lila considered herself the self-appointed guardian of this so-called shortcut. In her mind, it was practically a community lifeline. Tommy first noticed the issue on a lazy Saturday morning when a jogger casually jogged across it. Then came the dog walkers, followed by cyclists. By the next weekend, it was like rush hour on a highway. Tommy just stood there scratching his head, watching the parade of trespassers. "Is there a toll I'm supposed to be charging?" he muttered to himself. But being his usual easygoing self, Tommy decided not to make a fuss. Maybe it's just a one-time thing, he thought. He couldn't have been more wrong. One morning, Tommy decided to post a small sign that read, "Private property. Please do not trespass." He thought a polite reminder would be enough to stop the traffic. But no sooner had the sign gone up than Lila was knocking on his door, clipboard in hand, with an air of righteous indignation. "Tommy," she began, her voice dripping with both condescension and menace. "We need to talk about that sign you put up." "What about it?" Tommy asked, leaning casually against the doorframe, a bemused smile on his face. Lila thrust the clipboard at him like it was evidence in a courtroom. "This path has been used by the community for years. It's practically public property." Tommy raised an eyebrow. "It's on my deed. Pretty sure that makes it private property." Lila scoffed. "Well, here in this neighborhood, we value community access. That sign sends the wrong message." Tommy bit back a laugh. "Lila, it's just a sign. You're acting like I built moat." Her eyes lit up. "Don't give me any ideas," she snapped before storming off. The next week, things escalated. The sign had only made the trespassers more brazen. Now, instead of sneaking through, they strutted across it like they were making some kind of statement. Tommy even saw one jogger pause to take a selfie in front of the private property sign, posting it online with the caption, "Some people think they own the world. LOL. Things came to a head when Tommy came home one evening to find tire tracks carved into the strip. Someone had driven across it like they were testing a monster truck. "That's it," Tommy muttered, surveying the damage. "If they won't respect the sign, I'll give them something they can't ignore." Tommy decided it was time for a fence. Nothing too fancy, just a simple barrier to mark his property line and put an end to the nonsense. He called up a contractor, ordered the materials, and scheduled the work. When the crew showed up, Lila was already lurking nearby, glaring at them like a hawk. She marched over, clipboard in hand, and declared, "This construction is unauthorized." "You can't just build a fence without HOA approval," she snapped. Tommy flashed her a sweet smile. "Lila, the HOA doesn't own this land." "I do. You'll regret this," she hissed, stomping off in her neon pink sneakers. By the end of the week, the fence was up, complete with a sturdy gate and a fresh coat of paint. Tommy added a second sign for good measure: "No trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted." Lila's reaction? She stood outside the gate, arms crossed, muttering to herself like a villain plotting her next move. Tommy, sipping coffee from his porch, thought to himself, "Let the games begin." The day after the fence went up, Tommy was woken by a sound that could only be described as a car alarm crossed with a banshee's wail. He stepped outside to find Lila standing in front of the gate, honking her car horn as if she were rallying the HOA cavalry. "Tommy," she shouted, waving her clipboard like it was a white flag that wasn't even close to white. "This fence is a direct violation of HOA policy. Open this gate right now." Tommy, still holding his coffee mug, leaned against the fence. "Lila, it's 8 a.m. on a Saturday. What could possibly be so urgent?" Lila marched up to the gate, her visor slightly askew from the effort of her rage. "This path is vital for the community. You're blocking access, and that's illegal." Tommy took a sip of his coffee, his eyes narrowing. "It's not illegal if it's property," he muttered. "Lila, do you even understand what trespassing means?" "Don't get cute with me," she shot back. "I'm on the HOA board." "We'll see about this," Lila said, not about to back down. Later that afternoon, Tommy found a bright yellow violation notice pinned to his fence. The note, scribbled by hand, demanded he pay a $500 fine for unauthorized construction. Tommy laughed so hard he almost spilled his coffee. "Nice try, Lila," he muttered under his breath as he took the notice inside, slapping it onto his fridge like a trophy. Over the next few days, Lila's attempts escalated. She gathered a small group of HOA followers who started spreading rumors about Tommy. She even tried sending landscapers to tear down the fence, claiming it was for community maintenance. But Tommy wasn't having any of it. Each new attempt only made Tommy more determined. "If Lila wants a fight, she picked the wrong guy," he thought, as he set up security cameras around his property. Lila reached her breaking point when she realized Tommy wasn't going to budge. One bright afternoon, Tommy spotted her pacing outside his gate, phone pressed to her ear. Before long, 2 police cars pulled up. Tommy sighed, setting his book down. "Here we go," he muttered. The officers walked up, clearly uncomfortable. "We got a call about a blocked public road," one of them said. Tommy chuckled, pointing to the fence. "This isn't a public road, it's private property, and I can prove it." He handed over his property deed and a map of the township, both showing that the strip of land was his. The officers nodded, satisfied. Lila, hovering nearby, jumped in. "But it's been a shortcut for years." "That doesn't make it public," the officer replied, his patience wearing thin. "Ma'am, that's not how property rights work. This is private property, and he has every right to block access," the officer added. Lila's face turned bright red. "This isn't over," she yelled, storming off toward her car. Tommy waved at her with a grin. "Have a great day." The word about the incident spread fast. Some neighbors quietly supported Tommy, thanking him for standing up to Lila, while others, loyal to the HOA, whispered that he was disturbing the peace. Tommy couldn't care less. He added another camera for good measure and hung a cheeky sign on the gate. Private property. Trespassers will be hugged by the dogs. Despite Lila's tantrums, the fence stood firm, and Tommy wasn't backing down. Lila wasn't about to let things go quietly. Just days after the whole 911 fiasco, Tommy received a formal letter inviting him to an HOA meeting. The subject? His unauthorized gate and supposed obstruction of community access. Tommy rolled his eyes. "Of course she's taking this to a kangaroo court," he muttered. The meeting was scheduled for the next week, and Tommy, ever the planner, came prepared. He brought a folder stuffed with evidence, property deeds, security footage, and even screenshots of Lila's fake violation notices. "If she thinks she's got me cornered, she's in for a surprise," he smirked. The meeting took place in the community center, a bland beige room that seemed to match Lila's vibe perfectly. As Tommy walked in, he noticed Lila at the head of the table, her clipboard gripped tightly like a symbol of power. The room was filled with HOA board members, a few neighbors, and, naturally, Lila's loyal followers. She had a smug look on her face, like she'd already won. The meeting started with the HOA president, a balding man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, introducing the issue. "Today, we're discussing Mr. Tommy's fence, which has raised concerns about community access." Lila wasted no time. "It's more than a concern. It's disrupting the entire neighborhood. That path has been a vital shortcut for years, and now he's selfishly blocked it." Tommy raised his hand. "If I may." The president sighed. "Go ahead." Tommy stood up, calmly placing his folder on the table. "First off, let me clear something up. This land is not, and never has been, community property. It's private property. I own it. Here's the deed," he said, sliding the document across the table. A few board members leaned forward to take a look, nodding in agreement. Lila's smug expression faltered, but she quickly retorted, "It's been used as a shortcut for years." "That doesn't make it a community easement," Tommy replied with a smile. "Actually, no, there's no easement listed in any public records, and just because people trespass doesn't give them any right to it." To back up his claim, Tommy pulled out security footage showing various neighbors, including Lila, trespassing. The room erupted in murmurs, and Lila's face turned an angry shade of crimson. Refusing to give up, Lila tried one last-ditch argument. "This is about the community. We can't let one person ruin everyone else's convenience." Tommy chuckled. "Convenience doesn't trump property rights, Lila. And for the record, your so-called community didn't seem too concerned when tire tracks tore up my yard." The board president, clearly fed up with the drama, raised his hand. "Enough. Lila, we've seen the evidence, and it's clear that this land is not HOA property. We have no authority here." Lila slammed her hands on the table. "You're all cowards. This isn't over." But the other board members weren't having it. One elderly woman named Clara spoke up. "Lila, maybe it's time we let this go. We're just making fools of ourselves." The room went quiet as Lila realized her support was crumbling. The meeting ended with the board formally acknowledging that Tommy's property was his, and the HOA had no jurisdiction over it. As Tommy packed up his things, Lila stormed out, muttering something about taking it up with higher authorities. Tommy couldn't resist a parting shot. "Good luck with that, Lila," he called out, and the room erupted in laughter as she made her dramatic exit. Tommy walked out feeling victorious, knowing he'd outsmarted her at every turn. Just when he thought it was over, Lila proved she wasn't one to give up easily. A week after the HOA meeting, Tommy received another letter, this time from Lila's personal lawyer. The letter threatened legal action, claiming Tommy's fence violated an unwritten community easement and demanding its removal. Tommy burst into laughter when he read it. Unwritten easement? Is that even a legal term, or did she just make that up in her yoga class? Not letting it slide, Tommy forwarded the letter to his own lawyer. A day later, his lawyer called back, sounding more amused than concerned. "Tommy, this is textbook bluffing. She doesn't have a leg to stand on. Just take a deep breath and enjoy your coffee." Tommy smirked. "I plan to," I replied, though I couldn't shake the feeling that things weren't as simple as Tommy made them out to be. But Lila wasn't the type to back down easily. even if her lawyer wasn't making any headway. So, she decided to take matters into her own hands, literally. Late one night, Tommy's security cameras caught her creeping onto his property, a pair of bolt cutters in hand. The footage showed Lila struggling with the lock on the gate, muttering angrily to herself. After a few minutes, she lost her grip, and the cutters slipped from her hands. She tumbled backward, landing right in a flower bed. I couldn't believe my eyes. I saved the footage immediately, thinking, this is pure gold. The next morning, Lila acted like nothing was out of the ordinary. She waved cheerfully at Tommy from her driveway, as if everything was fine. Tommy waved back, barely hiding a grin. That's when Tommy decided it was time to let the world know about Lila's antics. He reached out to a local news station that covered HOA conflicts and property rights. After hearing his side of the story, the station jumped at the chance to do an interview. A few days later, a camera crew showed up at Tommy's house. He laid it all out, everything from the property deed to the security footage, to Lila's ridiculous behavior. She treats my property like it's her own personal shortcut, Tommy explained. And when I said no, she declared war. The segment aired that evening, complete with the hilariously awkward footage of Lila failing at her bolt cutter mission. The title? When HOA rules go too far, one homeowner's fight for his rights. The news story went viral, and Lila's reputation tanked. Neighbors who'd once sided with her started distancing themselves. A few even knocked on Tommy's door to apologize for their previous actions. I didn't realize how out of control she was, one admitted, looking sheepish. Meanwhile, Lila was fuming. She tried to rally the HOA in her defense, but the board, still reeling from the meeting, wanted no part of it. A week after the segment aired, Tommy received an official letter from the HOA, a formal apology, signed by the board president. It acknowledged Lila's overreach and confirmed that no further action would be taken against Tommy or his fence. The letter also mentioned that Lila had been asked to step down from the HOA board. Her actions do not reflect the values of our community, it read. Tommy couldn't hold back a laugh. Guess the HOA finally grew a spine, he said, pinning the letter to his fridge next to Lila's fake violation notice. Lila's dramatic fall from grace became the talk of the neighborhood. The once feared HOA queen was now the punchline of every joke. Her attempt to control Tommy's property, combined with the viral news coverage, had completely shattered her self-made reputation. Shortly after the HOA meeting, Lila put her house on the market. The first sale sign went up on Monday, and by Friday she was gone. Neighbors exchanged knowing smiles, their lawns looking greener than ever without Lila inspecting them for supposed violations. Tommy couldn't help but chuckle when he saw her moving truck blocking the street, an ironic violation of one of Lila's favorite HOA rules. With Lila out of the picture, the HOA loosened its grip. The new board, free of her influence, sent out a revised newsletter with a fresh, more positive tone. Let's focus on what really matters, building a friendly, cooperative community. Tommy even noticed some of his neighbors starting to be more neighborly. The same people who had once whispered behind his back were now smiling and waving at him, even stopping by to apologize for siding with Lila. "I'm sorry for believing her," one man said, handing Tommy a plate of cookies. "We just went along with it because she was so persistent." "No hard feelings," Tommy replied with a grin. "But if you ever see anyone with bolt cutters around my fence, maybe give me a heads up." One evening, Tommy sat on his porch, sipping his coffee, soaking in the calm that had eluded him for so long. His gate, his silent guardian, stood tall at the edge of his property. The private property sign sparkled in the fading light, a symbol of his victory. As he sat there, Tommy couldn't help but reflect on how absurd the whole situation had been. Who knew a patch of land could cause so much drama? But underneath the humor, Tommy realized the deeper lesson. Standing up for yourself, even against the loudest and most entitled voices, was worth it. To commemorate Lila's reign of chaos, Tommy added a cheeky new sign beneath the original private property notice. It read, "This land is a Lila-free zone." The next morning, he found a sticky note on his mailbox from one of his neighbors. It simply said, "Best sign ever." Tommy smiled, feeling a sense of peace as his suburban life finally felt back on track. Lila-free and drama-free. Lila's departure was swift, but it didn't go unnoticed. As her moving truck blocked the street, ironically violating her own HOA bylaws, Tommy watched from his porch with his coffee in hand. A neighbor walking by joked, "Think she left a note for herself about the truck?" Tommy laughed. "If only," he said. With Lila gone, a wave of relief swept through the neighborhood. It wasn't just about the fence or the rules. It was about reclaiming the peace Lila had disrupted. Under the new leadership of HOA President Charlie, things took a much friendlier turn. Charlie focused on harmony, not hostility. Rules were treated more like guidelines. Violations became friendly reminders, and community events started bringing people together instead of tearing them apart. Tommy noticed a noticeable shift in the neighborhood. Cars didn't have to match, lawns could be a little overgrown, and porch decorations actually started reflecting personal styles. The neighborhood was finally becoming what it was always meant to be, a home, not a battleground. One day, Tommy received a mysterious package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a small plaque engraved with the words, "The man who stood against Lila." Attached was a note, "Thanks for showing us how to stand up for ourselves. We owe you more than cookies." Tommy placed the plaque on his mantle with a shake of his head and a grin. "I didn't sign up to be the neighborhood hero," he muttered. Months later, as Tommy was trimming his garden, he saw a car slowing down near his gate. His stomach dropped. Is Lila back? But the driver just rolled down their window and waved, shouting, "Nice fence," before driving off. Tommy laughed. The gate had become more than just a fence. It was now a symbol of standing firm against overreach. As time passed, the neighborhood settled into a comfortable rhythm. The fence remained a proud landmark, and Tommy became something of a quiet legend. Anytime someone complained about the rules, a neighbor would chuckle and say, "At least it's not Lila running the show." Tommy added one final touch to his property, a small, funny sign that read, "For peace of mind, trespassers will be met with sarcasm." It quickly became a neighborhood favorite. Even Charlie admitted, that's the kind of rule we could all get behind. Valuable lesson. This whole ordeal reminded Tommy of an important truth. Standing up for yourself and your rights can lead to lasting change. One voice, one person can make a difference. Don't let anyone bully you. Have you ever had a Lila in your community? Share your stories in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming and inspiring content.